The warship moved through the darkness like a predator searching for prey. Commander stood at the center of the bridge, his gray skin reflecting the pale blue lights of the control panels around him. His black eyes showed nothing. They never did. They had removed emotion from their species long ago. They believed feelings were a disease that made lesser beings weak. "Commander," said senior analyst from his station, "we have detected a vessel. It is drifting without power at the edge of the sector." Turned his head slowly. "Species." "Human." A small ripple of interest passed through the bridge crew. Humans were new to this region of space. They had been watching them for some time, trying to understand these strange, soft creatures who seemed to run on chaos and sentiment. "Life signs?" asked. Studied his screens for a moment. "None, Commander. The ship appears to be dead. It has been drifting for approximately 47 standard days." A derelict then clasped his hands behind his back. "Move to intercept. We will extract all data from their systems before we destroy the vessel. Standard protocol." The warship changed course smoothly. Within an hour they had reached the human ship. It hung in space like a broken toy, its hull by radiation burns. The name on the side was written in the human language, translated it as the Meadowlark. It was a civilian transport, reported, not a military vessel. Records indicate it was designed to carry families and cargo. "Families?" another officer repeated. The word sounded strange coming from mouths. They did not have families in the human sense. They had breeding programs and growth facilities. Commander studied the drifting ship through the viewport. "Begin the data extraction. Take everything. Navigation records, communication logs, personal files, all of it." "All of it, Commander?" asked. "Personal files are typically irrelevant to our strategic needs." "The humans are unpredictable," said. "We must understand how they think. Their personal communications may reveal weaknesses we can exploit." Nodded and began the download. The systems were far more advanced than the human technology, and the extraction took only minutes. Terabytes of data flowed into their computers. "Download complete," announced. "Shall I begin analysis?" "Proceed. Summarize anything of tactical value." Began sorting through the files. Most were ordinary: passenger manifests, cargo inventories, maintenance logs. The Meadowlark had been carrying 312 humans from a failing colony world. They had been seeking refuge on a planet called New Helena. "They never arrived," said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "What happened to them?" asked a young officer named. Pulled up the ship's final status reports. "A radiation storm, their engines were damaged, life support began failing." He paused. "They had 6 days." "6 days until what?" asked. "Until the air ran out." The bridge fell silent. Even for they who prided themselves on feeling nothing, there was something heavy about those words. 312 beings trapped in a metal box, waiting to die. His expression did not change. "Continue your analysis. Focus on their communication systems and navigation data." Obeyed, but as he sorted through the files, something caught his attention. There was a folder that had been placed at the very top of the ship's main directory. It was labeled in simple human words, "For those who find us." He hesitated. This was not tactical data. This was not useful intelligence, but something made him open it anyway. Inside were video files, dozens of them. They were dated across the final 6 days of the ship's journey. "Commander," said, "there is something here you may wish to see." Walked over to the analyst's station. "What is it?" The humans left recordings. They knew they were going to die, and they created a record of their final days. They wanted whoever found them to see it. Stared at the screen. Why would they do such a thing? "I do not know, Commander." For a long moment said nothing. Then he gave a small nod. "Play the first recording." Touched the control panel, and a human face appeared on the screen. He was a male, perhaps middle-aged by human standards. His hair was brown with touches of gray, and his eyes were tired but calm. He wore a simple uniform with a captain's insignia on the shoulder. When he spoke, his voice was steady. "My name is Captain Daniel Shaw of the civilian transport vessel Meadowlark. If you are seeing this, then you have found our ship. I am recording this message on the first day of what I believe will be our final journey." He paused and took a breath. 3 days ago, we were caught in a radiation storm. Our engines are dead. Life support is failing slowly. We have sent distress signals, but we are too far from any inhabited system. No rescue will come in time. Captain Shaw looked directly into the camera, and for a moment, it felt like he was looking at themselves. "We have 312 souls on board, families, children, good people who were just looking for a new home. I want whoever finds this to know who we were, not just how we died, but how we lived in these final days. I want you to see that we were human until the very end." The recording ended. The bridge was silent. Every officer had stopped what they were doing. They were all looking at the screen where the human captain's face had been. Felt something strange in his chest. It was a sensation he had never experienced before. He did not have a name for it. "Commander," he said softly, "there are 47 more recordings." Stood very still. His black eyes were fixed on the blank screen. "Continue," he said at last. His voice was different somehow, quieter. "Show me everything." The second recording began with a different scene. It was not the captain this time. The camera showed a large cargo bay that had been converted into a living space. Blankets and sleeping mats covered the floor. Families huddled together in small groups. Children sat with their parents, their faces showing confusion and fear. In the center of the frame stood a woman. She had dark hair pulled back from her face and kind eyes that seemed too warm for such a cold situation. A small boy clung to her hand. He looked about 8 years old. "That is Porter," said, reading the file information. "She was the ship's medic. The child is her son, Cody." Commander said nothing. He simply watched. On the screen, knelt down to face her son. The boy's eyes were red from crying. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" he asked. Smiled at him. It was a gentle smile, the kind that mothers across all species seem to share. "We are going to be brave," she said. "That is what we are going to be. Can you do that for me?" The boy nodded slowly. "Good," pulled him close and hugged him. "I need you to help me with something. See all these other children. They are scared too. I need you to be their friend. Can you do that?" Cody wiped his eyes and looked around at the other children in the cargo bay. Some were younger than him. Some were older. All of them looked lost. "Okay, Mom," he said. "I can do that." Kissed his forehead and stood up. She looked at the camera for just a moment and her smile faded. Her eyes showed the truth she was hiding from her son. She knew they were all going to die, but she would not let the children see her fear. The recording jumped forward. It was later that same day. The children had gathered in a circle and was sitting with them. She was telling them a story. "A long time ago," she said, "on a planet called Earth, there were great blue oceans that stretched further than anyone could see. And in those oceans lived creatures called whales. They were bigger than this whole room." The children's eyes grew wide. "Bigger than the room?" a little girl asked. "Much bigger," said. "And do you know what they did? They sang deep, beautiful songs that traveled through the water for hundreds of miles. Other whales would hear them and sing back." "What did they sing about?" Cody asked. Thought for a moment. "I think they sang about being together, about not being alone in the big ocean." The children were quiet. The cargo bay was cold, and the lights flickered sometimes as the power system struggled. But for that moment, they were somewhere else. They were in an ocean on a world they had never seen, listening to giants sing. Paused the recording. His hands were trembling slightly, though he did not understand why. "This is inefficient," said an officer named. The medic wastes energy telling stories to children who will soon be dead. She should be preserving resources. Turn to look at, be silent, he said. His mouth closed immediately. No one on the bridge had ever heard the commander speak with such force. Continued the recording. The next segment was from the second day. Captain Shaw appeared again. He was standing on the bridge of the Meadowlark, looking out at the stars. Day 2, he said. Life support continues to decline. We have maybe 5 days left now, maybe less. He turned to face the camera. I called a meeting today. All the passengers gathered in the main hold and I told them the truth. I told them that no one was coming, that we would not survive. Shaw paused. His jaw tightened for a moment before he continued. I expected panic. I expected screaming, fighting, chaos. That is what you would expect, right? 300 people learning they are about to die. He shook his head slowly. That is not what happened. When I finished speaking, there was silence. Then a man stood up. His name is Henry. He is 73 years old, a retired teacher. He walked to the front of the room and said, Captain, we have heard you. Now let us show you who we are. Shaw's voice caught for a moment. And then he organized everyone. He made lists of who could help with what. He gathered the children for lessons. He asked the engineers to keep the lights on as long as possible, not for survival, but so the children would not be afraid of the dark. The captain looked directly into the camera. I have commanded ships for 20 years. I have seen the best and worst of humanity, but I have never seen anything like this. These people know they are dying, and instead of falling apart, they are taking care of each other. He smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was something else in it too, pride. If anyone finds this recording, I want you to know something. We are not just dying out here. We are living. Every moment we have left, we are living. The recording ended. The bridge was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Stared at the blank screen. He understood now what the feeling in his chest was. It was something that had tried to destroy long ago. It was admiration. He looked at Commander. The commander's face was still, but his black eyes seemed different somehow, deeper. Commander said quietly, "Do you wish me to continue?" Did not answer immediately. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the screen where the human captain had been. "Yes," he finally said. "Show me everything they recorded. I want to see how these humans spent their final days." Nodded and reached for the next file. Around him, every on the bridge leaned in closer. They did not know it yet, but something inside them was beginning to change. The recordings from day 3 showed the Meadowlark transforming. What had been a broken ship full of frightened passengers was becoming something else, something they had never seen before. Henry appeared on screen. He was an old man with white hair and a gentle face. He stood in front of a group of children who sat on the floor of the cargo bay, looking up at him with wide eyes. "Today," he said, "we are going to learn about the stars." He pointed upward toward the ceiling of the cargo bay. "Right now, we are surrounded by billions of stars. Each one is a sun, just like the sun that warmed Earth, and around many of those suns there are planets." A young boy raised his hand. "Are there people on those planets?" Henry smiled. "Maybe. We do not know for certain, but that is what makes the universe so wonderful. There is always more to discover." He began drawing on a piece of paper, showing the children how stars were born and how they died. He explained gravity and light and the vast distances between worlds. The children listened with complete attention, forgetting for a moment that they were dying. Paused the recording. "He is teaching them astronomy," he said. "They have perhaps 3 days left to live, and he is teaching them about stars." "A waste of time," officer muttered. "What use is knowledge to the dead?" "Perhaps," said slowly, "the knowledge is not for the dead. Perhaps it is for the living, for right now." Commander looked at his analyst with something that might have been curiosity. He said nothing, but he gestured for to continue. The next recording showed a young woman working on an access panel. Her hands were covered in grease, and her face was tired. The file identified her as Maria Vance, age 24, junior engineer. "I know what you are thinking," she said to the camera. Someone off-screen was filming her. "You are thinking, why bother? The ship is dead. We are all dead." She pulled a bundle of wires from the panel and began reconnecting them. "But every hour I keep these systems running is another hour of warmth, another hour of light, another hour where the children are not sitting in the dark, scared." She finished her work and closed the panel. The lights above her flickered, then grew steady and bright. "I cannot save anyone," Maria said, "but I can give them a few more hours of not being afraid. That has to mean something." The recording shifted to the dining area. Food was being distributed. The watched as adults took small portions for themselves and gave larger portions to the children. A teenage boy appeared on screen. He was tall and thin, with messy hair and a serious expression. The file said his name was Ben, age 15. Ben took his food ration and looked at it for a moment. Then he walked over to a family with 3 small children and handed his portion to the mother. "I am not hungry," he said. The mother tried to refuse, but Ben shook his head. "Please," he said, "your kids need it more than I do." He walked away before she could argue. The camera followed him to a corner of the room where he sat down alone. His stomach growled loudly, but he just wrapped his arms around himself and closed his eyes. Officer leaned forward. "This makes no sense," he said. "The boy is young. His body requires nutrition more than the smaller children. By giving away his food, he weakens himself faster. It is illogical." Did not respond immediately. He was watching the screen, where Ben sat alone in the corner, hungry but somehow at peace. "Perhaps," said finally, "logic is not what drives them." The recordings continued. Day 4 brought more of the same: adults sacrificing for children, strangers comforting strangers. The ship was cold now and the air was getting thin, but the humans did not fight over resources. They shared everything. One recording showed Porter bandaging a cut on an elderly woman's hand. The woman was crying, not from pain, but from fear. "I do not want to die," the woman whispered. Took her hand and held it gently. "None of us do," she said, "but we are together. You are not alone. You will never be alone." The woman looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Her tears stopped, and she managed a small smile. Another recording showed Captain Shaw sitting with his crew on the bridge. The screens around them were dark. There was nothing left to do. The ship was beyond saving. "I want to thank all of you," Shaw said. "You have served with honor. You have served with courage. Whatever happens next, I am proud to have been your captain." His crew nodded. Some of them were crying, but they all sat straight and tall, holding onto their dignity even as everything fell apart around them. The final recording of Day 4 was different. It was Captain Shaw alone in his quarters. The room was small and dark. He sat on his bed, holding a photograph. "This is for my daughter, Emma," he said quietly. "If anyone finds this, please try to get it to her. She lives on Earth in a city called Portland." He held up the photograph. It showed a young woman with his eyes and her mother's smile. "Emma, if you ever see this, I want you to know something. I am not afraid. I have lived a good life. I have seen wonders that most people only dream of, and I helped bring you into this world. That alone was worth everything." His voice broke slightly. "I am so proud of you. The person you have become, the kindness in your heart, the strength in your spirit. You are the best thing I ever did." He pressed the photograph to his chest. "I love you, sweetheart. I always will, even after the stars go out." The recording ended. On the bridge, no one moved. The silence was so complete that could hear his own heartbeat. He looked around and saw something he had never seen before. His fellow officers were struggling. Their carefully controlled faces showed cracks. Their black eyes glistened with something that might have been tears. Commander stood motionless, staring at the blank screen. "There is one more day of recordings," said softly. "Day 6, the final day." Took a deep breath. "Show me," he said. "Show me how it ends." First recording of Day 6 began in silence. The camera showed the main cargo bay, but the image was dim. The lights were failing. The air was thin. People moved slowly, their breaths coming in short gasps. Captain Shaw's voice came through the ship's speakers. It was weak but steady. "This is your captain speaking. Today is our final day. Life support will fail within the next few hours. I have ordered all remaining power to be directed to the main hold. I want us to be together at the end." The camera showed people moving through the corridors. Families walked hand in hand. Strangers helped those who were too weak to walk alone. There was no panic. There was no chaos, just quiet determination. The main hold filled slowly. 312 people gathered in the largest room of the ship. They brought blankets and pillows. They brought photographs and small treasures. They brought each other. Henry sat in the center of the room, surrounded by children. His voice was barely a whisper now, but the children leaned close to hear him. "I want to tell you one more story," he said. "A story about brave explorers who traveled across the stars." The children nodded, their small faces pale but trusting. "These explorers were not warriors," Henry continued. "They did not carry weapons or fight great battles. They were ordinary people who did extraordinary things. Do you know what made them special?" A little girl shook her head. "Love," Henry said. "They loved each other. They took care of each other. And that love made them stronger than any enemy. It made them immortal." "What does immortal mean?" Cody Porter asked. Henry smiled at him. "It means that even after they were gone, people remembered them. Their stories were told for generations. They lived forever in the hearts of those who came after." The children were quiet for a moment. Then Cody reached out and took the hand of the little girl beside him. She looked up at him with surprise, then smiled and squeezed his fingers. On the bridge, felt something break inside him. It was like a wall he had not known existed, crumbling to dust. His eyes burned with tears he did not know how to shed. The recording continued. Maria Vance appeared on screen. She had finally stopped working on the ship systems. There was nothing left to fix. She sat down beside a man she had never met before, a stranger with gray hair and kind eyes. "I am Maria," she said. "I am George," he replied. They looked at each other for a moment. Then Maria reached out and took his hand. "I do not want to be alone," she said. "Neither do I," George replied. "So we will not be." They sat together in silence, holding hands like old friends, like family. Porter found a corner of the room where she could sit with her son. Cody was shivering from the cold, so she wrapped her blanket around both of them. He looked up at her with frightened eyes. "Mom," he whispered, "is it going to hurt?" Pulled him closer. Her heart was breaking, but her voice was gentle. "No, sweetheart," she said. "It will be like falling asleep. And when you wake up, you will be somewhere beautiful, somewhere warm. I will be there with you." "You promise?" "I promise." Cody nodded and pressed his face against her shoulder, closed her eyes and held him tight. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she made no sound. The recording shifted to the center of the room. Someone had started singing. It was a simple song, an old melody from Earth that spoke of hope and light. One voice became two, two became 10, 10 became 100. 312 voices rose together in the dying ship. The song was not loud. There was not enough air for that, but it filled every corner of the hold. It wrapped around the people like a warm embrace. They watched in stunned silence. They had seen many things in their long history. They had witnessed battles and conquests and the fall of empires, but they had never seen anything like this. These humans, facing certain death, were singing. Ben stood near the back of the room. He had given away his food for 3 days. He was weak and dizzy, but he raised his voice with the others, adding his small note to the chorus. Henry sang with the children around him, his old voice cracking but strong. Maria Vance sang with George, the stranger who had become her friend in their final hours. Porter sang to her son, rocking him gently as the air grew thinner. And on the bridge of the Meadowlark, Captain Daniel Shaw watched his passengers through the internal cameras. He saw them gathered together, saw them holding each other, heard them singing, and he smiled. "My God," he whispered, "look at them, look at what we are." He turned on his camera one last time. "This is Captain Daniel Shaw. This is my final recording." He was alone on the bridge now. The stars shone through the viewport behind him, cold and distant and beautiful. "If anyone finds this," he said, "I want you to know something about us, about humans." He took a deep breath. The air was thin. He did not have much time. "We are small. We live short lives in a vast universe that does not care about us. We are fragile. We get sick. We grow old. We die." He looked directly into the camera. "But we love. We love each other with a fierceness that defies logic. We sacrifice for each other. We hold each other in the darkness. And when the end comes, we face it together." His voice grew soft. "We were here, we lived, we loved each other, and we were not afraid." The recording ended. The bridge was silent. No one moved, no one breathed. Commander stood like a statue, his black eyes fixed on the blank screen. His hands were trembling at his sides. In all his centuries of life, he had never felt anything like this. Looked at him. "Commander," he said quietly, "what do we do now?" Did not answer. He could not answer. Something had broken inside him too, something that would never be the same. For a long time no one on the bridge spoke. The silence was heavy and strange. It pressed down on them like a weight. Commander walked slowly to the viewport. The Meadowlark drifted in the darkness before them, small and broken and somehow beautiful. He stared at it for what felt like hours. Behind him, his crew sat frozen at their stations. They did not know what to do. They had followed protocols their entire lives. They had been trained to feel nothing, to act without emotion, to treat all situations with cold logic. But there was no protocol for this. There was no training that could have prepared them for what they had just witnessed. Officer finally broke the silence. "Commander," he said. His voice was not steady. "Shall I prepare the vessel for destruction? Standard protocol requires that we dispose of alien debris in contested space." Did not turn around. He continued staring at the Meadowlark. "No," he said quietly. Blinked, "Commander." I said no. His voice was strange. It had lost its usual coldness. There was something raw in it, something wounded. "We will not destroy this ship." The bridge crew exchanged confused glances. This was unprecedented. Commander never deviated from protocol. He was famous for his discipline, his control, his absolute dedication to principles. Stood up from his station and walked to stand beside the commander. He too looked at the drifting human vessel. "What will we do with it?" he asked. Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his words came slowly, as if each one cost him something. "We will tow it back to space. We will preserve it, every room, every object, every recording." "Preserve it?" Stood up, his face showing rare emotion. "Commander, with respect, this makes no sense. It is just a dead ship full of dead aliens. It has no military value, no strategic importance." Finally turned to face his crew. His black eyes were different now. They held something that had not been there before. Pain, wonder, something that looked almost like grief. "I have served the Empire for 300 years, he said. "I have conquered worlds. I have destroyed fleets. I have watched civilizations burn. And in all that time I have never questioned our ways." He took a step toward his crew. "We believe that emotion is weakness. We believe that love makes beings vulnerable. We believe that attachment leads to destruction. These are the foundations of our entire civilization." He gestured toward the viewport, toward the Meadowlark. But those humans knew they were dying. They had no hope of rescue, no chance of survival. According to our beliefs, they should have turned on each other. They should have fought for resources. The strong should have crushed the weak. His voice grew stronger. That is not what happened. Instead, they organized, they shared, they sacrificed. Adults gave their food to children. Strangers held hands with strangers. A teenage boy starved himself so younger children could eat. An old man spent his final hours teaching. Looked at each of his officers in turn. And in their last moments, when the air was almost gone and death was certain, they sang. They held each other and sang. The bridge was utterly silent. "We have spent purging emotion from our species," continued. "We believed it made us strong. We believed it made us superior. But these humans, these fragile, emotional creatures, faced oblivion with more dignity and courage than any I have ever known." He walked back to the viewport. "I have looked death in the face many times. I have always met it with cold acceptance. That is what we are taught. That is what we believe." He placed his hand on the cold glass. "But I have never faced death with love. I have never held someone close in my final moments. I have never sung in the darkness." Stepped forward. "Commander," he said softly, "what are you saying?" Turned to look at him. And for the first time in centuries, something like a smile crossed his gray face. It was small and sad and confused, but it was there. "I am saying that everything we believe may be wrong. I am saying that these humans, dying alone in the cold, understood something that we have never grasped." He looked back at the Meadowlark. "We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have accumulated more power than any species in this region of space. And yet we have never achieved what they achieved in 6 days. We have never loved each other. We have never truly lived." The silence that followed was different from before. It was not empty. It was full of thoughts and feelings that they did not have words for. Finally spoke. "The recordings," he said, "we should transmit them to the—" Turned to him in shock. "Are you mad? The High Council will never allow such things to be seen. It goes against everything we stand for." "That is exactly why it must be seen," replied. "Our people have forgotten something important, something these humans knew." He looked at Commander. "They knew that the connections between us are what give life meaning. They knew that love is not weakness. It is strength, the greatest strength there is." Nodded slowly. "Prepare the transmissions," he ordered. "Send everything, the recordings, the logs, all of it. Let our people see what we have seen." He walked to the center of the bridge and stood tall. "And prepare a towing beam. We will bring the Meadowlark home. It will become a monument, a reminder of what these humans taught us in their final hours." The crew hesitated for only a moment, then they moved to obey. As the warship powered up its towing beam and carefully, gently secured the human vessel, watched through the viewport. The Meadowlark was no longer just a derelict. It was a treasure, a gift from a species they had never understood. "What should we call it?" he asked. "The monument." Considered the question for a long moment. "The humans had a word," he said finally. "A word for the pain you feel when you lose something precious, when you love something and it is taken from you." He looked at the Meadowlark, at the ship that carried 312 souls who had died teaching the universe how to live. "They called it grief, and grief, I think, is the price of love." He turned to his crew. "We have never paid that price. Perhaps it is time we learned how." The warship turned slowly, the Meadowlark in tow, and began its long journey home. Behind them the stars shone cold and distant, but somehow they seemed less empty than before. In the darkness of space, among the cold calculations of an empire built on logic, something new had taken root. It was fragile and strange and terrifying, but it was also beautiful. The humans of the Meadowlark had achieved what no weapon could ever accomplish. They had shattered the certainty of an empire, and in the cracks they left behind, something wonderful was beginning to grow.